Hey everybody, it's Mitch, and welcome to my next video. Today we are going to be doing another Dungeons & Dragons class description. And today, again, from the Expanded Psionics Handbook, we have got our friend the Soul Knight. Wilder's coming later from my perspective, but you'll have already seen it a long time ago by the time this comes out. So anyways, Soul Knight. Let's talk about them. So we're going to talk, just like always, we're going to start and talk about what kind of characters they are, how they interact with people, how you're going to be as a character from a role play standpoint. And then once we get done with that, we're going to jump into it and we're going to talk about the nitty-gritty, the stats, the statistics, the numbers, how to make an actual build with this, or if it's even worth it to make a build with this. So that's what we're going to talk about. So if you're interested in that, definitely subscribe and continue watching the video. So let's jump into it. So the Soul Knife. Well, they're an interesting breed. They're a type that is a little bit roguelike. They are the type that they envision a blade in their mind and they turn it into reality, something that they can actually use and fight with. It's nice. So when they go on adventures, they're the type that are going to want to, try and use that. They like to use their blade for both melee and range. They're very useful. They tend towards law over chaos. What's really interesting is they're almost never neutral in that regard. So lawful soul knives, soul knives, they, it's hard to remember if it's soul knife or soul blade because it's a mind blade, and it's weird that they've got like two similar words twice, and yeah. Anyway, so the soul knife, they have their mind blade, and how they manifest it if they're lawful is they do it through discipline. They discipline their mind into forming this blade. But if they are chaotic, then they do it through their sheer force of willpower and the power of their power of their character. But how do they do it when they're neutral? The book doesn't say, and it says that they're very rare. So how I would interpret that as a DM is, if you want to be a neutral soul knife, what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to answer that question. You're going to need to tell me, how do you manifest this blade? What do you do? Do you use some combination of the other two? Do you use something else entirely? What is it? If you can't answer that question, then I'm not going to let you play it. But, if you can answer it, then all right. If you want to be a neutral soul knife, cool. I'm not sure why that would be necessary, though. Yeah, it really isn't super critical for most builds that you be neutral in that particular way. Even things like multi-classing with Druid, then just go, neutral good, or sorry, you go lawful neutral, you go like lawful neutral or neutral evil or chaotic neutral, both perfectly valid choices. So for religion, a lot of them don't worship, but the ones that do, they like St. Cuthbert, they like what's his Hieronymus. Have to look that up real quick. And background. They are usually trained by other soul knives, because a lot of characters that would meet the discipline for both the physical and the psionic prowess are psychic warriors. So this is kind of a weird one. In terms of race, like the psychic warrior, anyone can be a soul knife. And how they interact with other classes. Well, they don't like psychic warriors because of the competition. As for that, they also don't get along with a few other classes for various reasons, but they do like things like paladins and other paladins and monks and other classes like that. So that's interesting. Now, so yeah, that's basically what they are from a role-play perspective. If you're going to be role-playing as one, you're going to be a little bit of a sneaky guy. but a lawful one, which is unusual for a rogue type. So yeah, you're going to be kind of a lawful rogue, probably, maybe a chaotic one, probably not neutral, at least not in regards to chaos and law. So yeah, that's interesting. Now, if we get into, let's get into the nitty-gritty details, stat statistics, build stuff. Okay, so I've had a friend telling me all about just how terrible these guys are, and honestly, I disagree with him. So I can see his logic, but we're going to go over this, and I'm going to tell you why I disagree with him. So hang in there. So basically, their key abilities, strength, dex, big ones, cons also a big one, mental abilities, not really important for them. Weirdly enough, for somebody that is, for a psionic type, to be able to dump all their mental stats, really, really weird. But they can because they don't actually use any of them. Their blade is not actually a power. So yeah, they just kind of get it. Okay, so what do they get? They get a D10 hit dice, which is great. Even a psychic warrior does not get that. So in that regard, they are a more martial class. Although, for other reasons, I'm going to say that's not really true. But in terms of hit dice, they do have them beat. They have the same base attack bonus. Just the average base attack. They have a bad fort, which is why I say they're not really as the same level of martial class, because bad fortitude, but they do have a good reflex and will save. Now, they get a bunch of other stuff as well, and we're going to start going over that. But first, we're going to talk about skills. They actually get pretty decent. 4+ int and a decent skill pool, not bad. So let's talk about their Mind Blade, because the Mind Blade is the key feature of the Soul Knife, which is kind of confusing because mind, soul, blade, knife, kind of similar stuff. Really easy to mix up the terminology on that. So far I've done pretty good, which surprises me, actually. So, how this works. So basically, they initially can create a mind blade. A mind blade out of just by manifesting it from their brain. Like, they think it into existence, and it becomes, while it's in their hand, a physical weapon that they can use. As they level up, this weapon will actually will actually gain magical enchantments. And even at first level, it counts as a magical weapon for overcoming damage reduction, which is kind of nice. So even a weak mind blade, so like a first level soul knife, can actually get through damage reduction like that. So things like, a Star Mantle Cloak, would not be particularly effective against Mind Blade at a first level Mind Blade, which is insane. Like, no other first level character is going to be able to get around that, really, because they can't afford it. Buying a +1 anything at first level, no, that's like 2,000 gold. You're not getting that at first level. Probably not till like 3rd or 4th level. So anyways, that's kind of cool. And this levels up. Every 4 levels, it will gain another +1 enhancement. And it also is going to gain enhancements to give it more like enchantments that they can put on it. And that's going to go at starting at 6 levels and every 4 levels after that. So it's going to be every other level it's going to start going up once you hit 6th level. So, at 4th level, it'll be a +1. At 6th level, it'll be a +1 with a +1 enhancement. Then at 8th level, it'll be a +2 with a +1 enhancement. And then, 10th level, it'll be a +2 with +2 enhancement, and so on and so forth until you get to 20th level, where it's a +5 weapon with a +4 enhancement. That's effectively a +9 weapon, which, that's 182,000 gold that they get for free, which is huge. Like, that's a lot of money. Even at 20th level, that's a good chunk of change that they don't have to invest in weapons which is really, really rare. Like everybody is investing heavy in that. So they will have a lot more money to spend on other stuff, which is one of the main selling points of these guys, is they can invest in other things because they don't have to invest in weapons. Now, they don't get much else besides this, which is problematic, but the fact that they're able to do this, and they're actually, as we get into it, you'll see they actually have a lot of versatility to them. So they gain weapon focus and then later weapon specialization, which is, or sorry, not weapon specialization, greater weapon focus, which is really nice for their Mind Blade. They could potentially take weapon specialization as well, although they would have to take levels of fighter to qualify. So yeah, they get Wild Talent for free, which just gives them 2 power points, which will allow them to, jump in, take some psionic feats, because they can't really manifest on their own. Let's see, they can throw their Mind Blade, which is really cool. It has a range increment of 30 feet, which to those who aren't super familiar, you would think, oh, I can throw it 30 feet. Not quite the case. I mean, yes, you can absolutely do that, but when it says a range increment of 30 feet, that's 30 feet without penalty. That's your first range increment. You actually get 5 of them for a thrown weapon. And with that, you could actually throw it 150 feet. Now, you are going to be taking a penalty. I think it's like -8 for going the full 5. I'm pretty sure it's 2 per range increment. But still, you can throw it 150 feet with penalty. 30 feet without, 60 with a -2, 90 with a -4, so on and so forth. But yeah, that's kind of nice. And by that point, it's going to be rare you're going to see something that far out. But it happens. They're also able to do a Psychic Strike, which is similar, but not the same as a Sneak Attack. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to do an additional number of D8s of damage. And it's going to be, looks like, 3. And it looks like it goes every 4 levels, something like that. So starting at 3rd level and then up every 4 levels thereafter. I think from a quick glance. So basically, this damage is not sneak attack. This is not precision damage at all. So things that make you immune to that, like fortification, don't matter to this. Things that, those kinds of things aren't going to affect it, which is really nice. Also, it's not precision damage. So it does not matter in the slightest if they're caught off guard. They can be watching you get stabbed with it, and it's still going to hit. Now, it does have a caveat of the creature cannot be mindless, so it's not going to work on some things. So it's not going to work on constructs, being one of the more notable one. I believe oozes aren't going to be affected by it. Things of that nature. But most of your tougher opponents will be fine. Now, things that are immune to mind-affecting effects will not take this damage, so that kind of sucks. But what's nice about it is, so you do have to spend a move action to charge it, but it stays on it until it hits. Now, if it hits someone that's immune, I'm pretty sure it gets spent. But if it misses or something else, it doesn't get spent. Now, if you throw the blade, it'll disappear, but you can just manifest it back in your hand, and voila, you have it again. And it's on it, because that blade that disappeared is the one that is the exact same one that was now in your hand, which is really cool. Also, these things can break, but if they break, you can just manifest it again, and it's the same one. Since it's real, but not really, really real. If that makes any sense. Then at 5th level, they can also get free draw, which will allow them to just draw their blade for free. It's a free action, so it doesn't take a move action to draw the blade. Because before, you then have to spend a move to draw, and a move to put the Psychic Strike on it. A little bit action heavy, but that's only at early levels. That goes away once you get to higher levels, although the Psychic Strike is still going to take that move action to do. So that's not something you're going to be able to rely on for more than probably once in combat. Maybe more if like you end up with a round where there's not much you can do. You can charge your weapon with Psionic Strike, but beyond that, yeah. So they're also able to shape their Mind Blade, which this one's really cool. So eventually they're going to be able to turn it into a long sword and then into a bastard sword. And when they turn it into a bastard sword, they're also able to instead also make it 2 short swords, which so when it's a short sword, it's just dealing 1d6. But then when it's changed it to a long sword, it'll do 1d8, assuming medium size, more or less if it's bigger or smaller. Then when you get to long sword, it's 1d8, it's 1d10 for bastard swords, which they have to use in 2 hands, unless they have the feat, which, okay, that's kind of cool, which makes sense because you need that feat anyways. Like all it's saying in here is that you can't use it in one hand normally. Well, yeah, normally you can't use a bastard sword in one hand. Like, I guess there's a penalty, and these guys say you specifically can't. My guess is you still can. You're just going to take that same penalty, and you can use it in 2 hands. Like my friend, I think he's misunderstanding some stuff saying that you can't use it in 2 hands. Pretty sure you can use it in 2 hands if you want. Now, if you want to use 2 of them, you can split them. Now, if you split it, it's not going to be as strong. So instead of, obviously it'll do a d6 instead of a d10, and 2 of them. But on top of that, instead of being, a plus whatever weapon, it's going to be 1 step lower. So that's going to stink a little bit, but not that bad. And in all honesty, that's still like 2 plus 8 weapons. That's like 256,000 gold is how much it would cost to get the equivalent of that. Now, in fairness, the abilities that you can put on are more limited than normal, but they're still pretty decent. So that's something. But it's really nice. On top of that, when they do put the enchantments on, they're actually able to change the enchantments sort of at will. It takes 8 hours for them to do it. That's just, 8 hours is a long time. You're not going to be getting 8 hours in combat. Like, that's a third of the day. That's a full night's sleep, or half of your waking day. Significant chunk of time. But if you're have to do some stuff for the next day or whatever, like if you're going into battle and what your enemy is going to be like, you can change it up. So you have the freedom to change what enchantments are on your weapon, which is kind of huge in terms of versatility. This is not something that other characters can do very easily, because they'd have to buy new weapons, and that's expensive. They could sell it and buy new ones, but you only get half value. You lose a lot of wealth doing that. These guys do this for free, so no one else is going to get this kind of versatility in terms of what their weapons are, which is nice. So yeah, that's really good. They also get speed of thought, which is kind of cool. Basically, if they're just wearing light or no armor, they can get a +10 bonus to speed for a while. Not bad. They get Blade Wind, which is basically whirlwind attack, but they just take their blade and scatter it and attack a bunch of things at once. So they can attack everything that's in range. So if they're medium, that'd be up everything that's within 1 square of them. If they're large, then everything within 2, so on and so forth. So if you're bigger, this is actually more useful, but you have to take it for what it is. As I said, you do get great weapon focus, or greater weapon focus. You also get Knife to the Soul, which basically what that means is when you're doing your Psychic Strike, what you can do is you can trade D8 of damage for 1 point of ability damage. And you get to choose what ability that goes on. Now, it has to be a mental ability. It can only be intelligence, wisdom, or charisma. But that can be really nice, especially if you suspect your opponent might have be really low on one of those. You can start targeting that because it might not affect them at first, but if you can drop that all the way to 0, well, they're out of the fight. You can't have 0 abilities. It won't kill them, but it will render them unconscious, or maybe not unconscious, depending on what ability, but it'll render them unable to fight. Well, especially the mental ones will almost certainly be like a sort of unconscious state. Some of those mental ones are really scary if you drop to 0. If you actually read what happens, it's kind of nasty. Now, you could also instead, like if there's a wizard, target their intelligence to make their attacks less potent and all that. So that's an option too, but going for their weak stat might be the better option. Especially seeing as there isn't a save. Like if you manage to hit them and they're not immune to mental damage, you just hurt their ability score. And you can potentially, at 20th level, if you go all out on it, do like 5 points of damage with one strike. Now, you can only do this like once a turn, but you do this for 2 or 3 turns, you can very easily take out someone's weakest stat, almost certainly. So if you know which one to target. So you'll have to kind of watch your opponent and kind of get an idea for what kind of person they are. Then at 17th level, they're able to get multiple throws, so they're able to throw their knife more than once. Before that, they weren't able to really do that, just because when they threw it, they weren't really fully able to. They still have to spend. They could only manifest one as a free action per turn, but with multiple throw, they're able to throw it and then get it back. And if they have 2, they can. So by 20th level, when they get 3 attacks, they are actually going to be able to do a little bit better. They're able to actually. Yeah, and I think the book's actual. Is the book wrong? Yeah, the book is almost certainly wrong, saying that they only get at 14th level. At 15th level, they're saying that. Yeah, that's definitely a typo in the book, because a plus 11 base attack would be 3 attacks. So yeah, when they hit 14th level, they will not 14th, 15th level, they would be able to get 3 attacks, and potentially 3 shots with their dual weapons. Now they'd have to take 2-weapon fighting feats to be able to do it properly. Like, this doesn't give you the feats. Just because you have the Mind Blade doesn't mean you're able to do things with the Mind Blade that you couldn't do with a regular weapon. No. That's really all the restrictions, what they're saying. Like, with the Bastard Sword and all that, you can absolutely use your Mind Blade in 2 hands, even at first level, for that little bit of extra damage. All that that's saying is you don't get free feats. Like, if you can't do it with a regular weapon, you can't do it with a Mind Blade. So that's all that's saying. Yeah, so that's kind of why I think they're not as bad as my friend thinks. Now, do I think they're as able to specialize in one thing as another class would be? No, definitely not. They're definitely not as capable of min-maxing as other classes. But if you want someone with versatility, someone that can change their weapons on the fly to fit the situation, these guys are definitely it. Now, as I said, they can't change the enhancements like that, but they can in 8 hours, which is a lot better than most characters can without spending a crap ton of money. Also, on top of that, what these guys are capable of doing is most characters, they store their swords on their hip, or they put them on their back, or wherever they have them. These guys, they store them in their minds. So that's where they sheath it. The weapon is sheathed right here, which actually means sheathing time is none. Like, they can sheath their weapon as a free action, basically. It doesn't mention it anywhere, but clearly, like, they can just dismiss it as, like, for free. So, which is way better Well, actually, they can absolutely dismiss it for free, because as soon as it leaves their hand, so if they just drop it, boom, that's effectively sheathing it, because it just disappears and then they can get it back. Like, yeah, so they can sheath it for free, unlike unlike everyone else who like has to spend a significant amount of time sheathing their weapon, because sheathing a physical weapon is kind of hard. Actually, it takes a little bit of effort. So these guys can absolutely do that. Also, you know, if they walk into a bar or tavern or someplace where they check your weapons, they're not going to see any weapons because their weapon is right here. And if you need to pull it out, boom, you pull it out of your mind, no problem. Or if you get captured and all your gear gets taken away, you still got your weapon because it's right here. So that's kind of nice. There's definitely some solid advantages to this. They're not the best min-max class out there. Definitely agree with that. But they've got more going for them than what my friend seems to think. Anyways, let me know what you guys think of the video. Leave a comment down below. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel for more of these videos. And as always, I'm Mitch, and I'll be seeing you